The Jonathan Kuminga situation in Golden State is not going well. What can the Jazz learn from it? Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's just keep growing. We're at 11K subscribers. Let's get to 12. Let's go beyond. All right, so the Jonathan Kuminga situation in Golden State is about as toxic and bad as you can imagine. They are close to just having him get a qualifying offer, which would make him a free agent the following season. He would lose over $10 million or something along those lines if he does that, but it would allow Kuminga to become a free agent. And from what everyone's saying, the experts, that there is a market for him out there. How big it is, we shall see. Sometimes players get burned in that situation when they go into free agency expecting a big payout and then nothing comes. Just ask Dennis Schroeder. But then there are also times where teams look at someone like Kuminga, who looks like a prospect that has not really developed as much as people expected in Golden State, and they might throw some money his way. So we'll see how it goes. But basically, how does this affect Utah Jazz or other teams? What can the Jazz and the NBA learn from it in general? Basically, what happens with Jonathan Kuminga is he goes to the Golden State Warriors, where they have two timelines going. They have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and then they bring in a young, high-ceiling rookie in Jonathan Kuminga, but one of those players that has a lot of polish needed to his game. All the physical tools, incredible size, length, athleticism, all those different things. But the skill level had to catch up to that, and it just hasn't quite gotten there. He has proven that he can score the ball. When he plays, he's shown he can be a 20 points per game guy. The thing that's been a little bit difficult, and the thing that I haven't particularly understood, is the fact that he hasn't been as an elite defender as you would expect. If Jonathan Kuminga goes out there with his physical tools and dominates on the defensive end, you're likely going to see him get more and more minutes, and that just hasn't particularly happened. It has at times, but not consistently enough for him to play. But I do think there are some things that were going on that were not Jonathan Kuminga's fault, that the team did, and that is connected to the Utah Jazz in an interesting way. So, like I said, two timelines. They have the veterans, and they bring in Kuminga, who is a player that needs a lot of development and a lot of time to work through his mistakes and just learn to play better and become an NBA player. When you're playing for championships and playoff positioning with players like Steph Curry, you're not going to have a ton of patience for a player trying to develop and get better. It's weird, honestly, that the Warriors drafted him in the first place, and it sounds like the owner, Joe Lacob, was behind that, and the front office, but especially Joe Lacob, instead of drafting someone like Franz Wagner, who they could have picked. Now, what happens is that in that situation, you get a lot of kind of, conflict between the front office and the coach, and we've seen that kind of happen with Steve Kerr just not playing Kuminga. He puts him out there to appease the front office, but whenever it doesn't go well, pulls him immediately. And we've seen that for years with this Warriors team. And even when Kuminga's gotten chances to play because of injuries to other starters and played pretty well, he has lost that position when those players come back. And Steve Kerr has never made it a point of importance to have Kuminga play consistently. And now this is the situation you're in. You can't really fault Steve Kerr for what he's doing. He's trying to win games. That's what NBA coaches try to do. But then you also can't fault Kuminga, who feels like he has gotten the wrong end of the stick in every situation. It's extremely similar to me with the situation with Dante Exum, where you had Dante Exum, a player that Dennis Lindsey really pushed to play, and Quinn Snyder did not want to, and played players like Shelvin Mack and other players. And yes, Dante Exum got injured, so that it's a little bit different, but the parallels are pretty interesting. And Quinn Snyder was not willing to budge on what he was doing with the team. It ended up being the downfall for him, along with other things that we talked about. But it was also the downfall with Dennis Lindsey. We've already seen front office people leave at the Golden State Warriors already about this. And Joe Lacob, who has pushed for Kuminga this whole time, conflicting with Steve Kerr and what the front office has tried to do, they're not going to really get anything out of Kuminga. Utah, the best they could do was they got Jordan Clarkson, who had a nice career with the Jazz, won Sixth Man of the Year. But after that Sixth Man of the Year, he has not really produced at a very high level. Jordan Clarkson ended up getting traded. So all Utah got for Dante Exum, who was a top 5 pick, was Jordan Clarkson. And that really seems like what's going to happen with Kuminga and this Golden State Warriors situation. Now, what can Utah learn from this? Well, the big thing is that it's important that the front office and the coach are in cohesion with their goals, that they're on the same page, they're both doing something that they both understand, and they aren't going to be doing things to oppose each other, because you have the front office, you have the owner, and you have the coach in these situations. And then you also have the players. The best thing Utah has done this offseason was make the trades to trade the veterans. It was a long time coming, and I can't believe it took this long for the Jazz to do it, because last season they had to manipulate lineups to lose games. They finally trade the players that they were just resting all year last year. They could have just made those trades already. Instead, they held on for trying to max out those trade assets, and it just never really happened. Austin Ainge, this offseason so far, I've been a pretty big fan because he's gotten a lot out of a situation where there wasn't a lot there to be had. Danny Ainge did an incredible job with the Gobert trade and the Donovan Mitchell trade, considering what was going on and the leverage they did not really have. Danny Ainge created leverage out of nowhere, but they waited too long. The biggest downfall of the first 2 seasons was waiting too long to trade Mike Conley. If you're going to trade him, right? Trading other veterans. And what happened is Utah ended up with the 9th and 10th pick in the lottery and don't have a lot to show for it. Now, Taylor Hendricks might turn into something. We'll see. Maybe Cody Williams turns into something. We'll see. But Utah could have certainly done a lot better had they been more proactive with what they're doing. What I like is with Austin Ainge is that he understands the assignment and got rid of those veteran players so the youth can play. And that helps this situation now be so much more cohesive and better between between Will Hardy and the Jazz front office. Will Hardy can go out there and play to win, and then he's also playing the players that the front office wants him to play, the youth. At least it appears like that. Now, Utah is still not quite out of the clear. They still have some veterans on this team. Kyle Anderson's on this team. George Niang is now on this team. Utah picks up George Niang with that trade with Boston to get some salary relief for them and bring back some picks for Utah. And then the big elephant in the room is Lauri Markkanen. Can the Utah Jazz make their goal of getting a top 8 protected pick this upcoming offseason with Lauri Markkanen on the team? That is going to be the question of the entire season. Lauri Markkanen played much better in Eurobasket. We'll see how he's doing when he comes to Utah for training camp. Utah has some big question marks still. And yes, they can keep Markkanen and maybe walk that tightrope and get lucky in the lottery. We'll see. That obviously we all hope that happens as Jazz fans. But there is a tightrope there where if Lauri Markkanen comes and plays extremely well and Utah is edging too close to that number 8 pick and losing their pick, things might get interesting. And if Lauri Markkanen and some of these other players are taking minutes from the Jazz youth, which is absolutely what the Jazz don't want to happen, it's going to get interesting. And you can run into the conflicts that's kind of going on with Jonathan Kuminga and Dante Exum with those teams. I have talked about this before. We've talked about it with Ace Bailey. The biggest thing the Jazz need to do this this upcoming season, aside from just developing everyone and figuring out what they have to do this right with Ace Bailey. They have to treat him correctly. Jonathan Kuminga was not treated correctly. He was not treated right. And these players over time get tired of it, and they know that they have earning potential. And when the team is doing things that actively hurts that owning potential, it hurts your negotiations down the road. Utah wants to do everything right by Ace Bailey, and so what they have to do is play him. And I promise you that's what the front office wants to happen. And they need Will Hardy to play him. So Utah's front office needs to look at what this situation is going to look like, both in training camp, preseason, and then regular season. But if this situation turns into something where Ace Bailey's not getting on the floor, they've got to make they've got to do something to make that better. They cannot go into a situation where Ace Bailey's getting frustrated, especially considering all the things from this offseason, everything that's already been happening with Utah and Ace Bailey. The worst thing they can do is then treat him poorly in terms of playing time and coaching this upcoming season. So the best way to fix that situation, if they want to make things right with Ace Bailey, especially if Ace Bailey looks like he is a stud, is they need to make more moves to make sure they clear space for him to play. Now, if Ace Bailey comes in and he plays incredible, then this whole conflict kind of settles itself. But the only issue I see coming from this is a situation like we saw during Summer League, where you have other players that are going to try to get theirs and take that time from Ace Bailey. We'll see. Will Hardy has some different challenges this year than he did last year. Last year, it was playing young guys and sitting veterans. Well, he was just basically being told not to play the veterans. This year, though, he's going to have to pay close attention to what the youth are doing. He cannot have situations where someone like Isaiah Collier is just going crazy with the ball, playing terribly, and it's hurting the development of guys like Ace Bailey. Walter Clayton out there needs to get some time. We need to see what he can do. Is he a potential starting guard for the Jazz? I don't know. The size is a question mark. But if he plays extremely well, then maybe. Maybe he's a Fred VanVleet type or something like that. But Will Hardy has to manage this situation very carefully, because Utah does not want to get into a bad situation with Ace Bailey down the road. And, Utah is going to, I would be absolutely shocked if Utah doesn't get a top 8 pick in this upcoming draft. And they're going to have room for that player to play as well. So Utah's offseason moves this year and the trade deadline moves that are coming this season have to have that in mind. Let's just all hope that Ace Bailey is as good as we're all hoping. Because if he is, then a lot of these problems get fixed themselves. So, guys, that's all I got. I thought it was an interesting thing. I wanted to talk about it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.